Emmerdale delivered a major turning point as Dawn Fletcher walked away from fiancé Joe Tate after uncovering his manipulative blackmail scheme. The twist comes shortly after reports suggested the character may be written out of the show, potentially marking the end of Olivia Bromley's long-running role. The storyline marks a refreshing shift for Dawn, who has increasingly lost focus in recent years. Her decline began after her youngest son, Evan, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia in 2024. At the time, Dawn and her then-husband were overwhelmed with fear and exhaustion, carefully managing Evan's condition and trying to protect him from infection. However, the storyline later drifted away from his illness in a way that felt unresolved on screen. Attention soon moved to the arrival of Dawn's estranged mother, Rose, briefly exploring Dawn's emotional struggles, but this was quickly dropped, and the focus shifted again to her father, Will Taylor. Rose eventually left the picture without further development, leaving several emotional threads unfinished. Just as Evan's medical storyline should have remained central, Will's death became the next major family shock, followed by Dawn's affair with Joe, which ultimately ended her marriage. Her involvement in a new relationship while her son was still unwell felt at odds with her earlier characterization as a devoted mother. Later, it was finally revealed that Evan's treatment had been successful, but only after a long gap without updates. Although this allowed some space for character development, Dawn continued to lack independent storylines. A standout episode briefly explored her past trauma involving coercion and addiction, but the impact was short-lived. Outside of that, her friendships faded, and her role within her business venture received little attention, leaving her mostly defined by her turbulent relationship with Joe. That relationship became increasingly damaging as his actions escalated, including threats, manipulation, and involvement in serious wrongdoing affecting multiple villagers. The revelation that Dawn had previously pushed Joe out of a window should have been a major turning point, but it was quickly sidelined with little lasting consequence, allowing their strained relationship to continue without resolution. However, a shift finally came when Dawn saw footage involving John Sugden and a fatal confrontation with Victoria Sugden. Horrified to discover Joe had recorded the incident and used it as leverage, Dawn took decisive action by deleting the evidence and turning against him. This moment marked a long-awaited change in her character, showing her finally pushing back against manipulation and refusing to be controlled. It also opened the door for a potential stronger direction for her storyline going forward. Going ahead, there is speculation that Dawn could seek revenge on Joe for his actions, especially given the wide impact of his schemes on other villagers, including Moira Dingle, Kerry Wyatt, and Jacob Sugden. Possible directions could include forcing a confession, exposing him legally, or even taking control of his assets in a calculated move. A renewed alliance with Ryan Stocks could also help her regain power and shift the balance against Joe. Other potential twists include the return of a figure from her past or unresolved consequences linked to earlier actions, such as the death of D.I. Malone in self-defense during her time at Home Farm. While that past incident has largely remained buried, any future exit storyline could bring it back into focus, raising the stakes for her character once again. Ultimately, many fans hope her departure, if it happens, is handled with impact and depth, giving proper weight to her journey and the strength of her performances over the years. Emmerdale sets up a shocking and high-stakes storyline as Charity Dingle is pushed to the edge in a dangerous childbirth crisis. Charity's hidden truth is finally under threat. Sarah Sugden and Jacob Gallagher are not the real parents of the baby she is carrying, despite what everyone believes. The child is actually the result of a secret encounter with her ex, Ross Barton. While the pregnancy has kept the truth buried for now, everything begins to unravel during a chaotic series of events on the day of Sarah's baby shower. When the cake fails to arrive, Charity and Mackenzie Boyd set out to collect it themselves, but a chain of bad luck quickly begins. They soon find themselves stranded in a remote location after their car breaks down, and both realize they have left their phones behind, cutting them off from help just as Charity goes into labour. A passing car offers a brief lifeline when Ross agrees to drive them to the hospital, though the situation is tense and uncomfortable for everyone involved. Meanwhile, Sarah Sugden becomes increasingly worried after noticing missed calls and realising something is wrong at the party. Once at the hospital, the situation takes another turn when Charity, Mackenzie, and Ross become trapped inside a malfunctioning lift. Inside the confined space, Charity's contractions intensify while emotions run high. Mackenzie struggles with panic due to past trauma, Ross tries to stay composed, and Charity battles through the pain as the situation worsens. At the same time, Jacob is dealing with a separate crisis as he reports workplace bullying issues involving Dr. Todd to HR and finally confronts her directly. Back in the lift, a midwife over the intercom guides Ross and Mackenzie through the possibility of delivering the baby themselves. Sarah's emotional support proves crucial as she encourages Charity to keep going when she feels she can no longer continue. However, the situation becomes critical when Charity suddenly begins to hemorrhage, turning the birth into a life-threatening emergency. As panic spreads among those outside and inside the hospital, it becomes clear that Charity's condition is extremely serious. Tensions rise between Ross and Mackenzie, while Sarah and Jacob struggle to process the unfolding trauma. With emotions at breaking point, the long-hidden secret surrounding the baby threatens to come out at any moment, raising the possibility of major consequences for everyone involved. If Charity survives, the aftermath could be just as explosive as the birth itself. She may struggle emotionally with the experience, and the question remains whether she will keep the baby or finally reveal the truth that could destroy her family. Emmerdale sees a tense new development as Jacob Sugden finally decides to take action against his controlling boss and formally reports her to HR. Even after being warned by a colleague to stay out of trouble, Jacob pushes ahead with his complaint, unaware that she is closely observing his every move and may have further plans to make his life even harder. The actor who plays Jacob says the character is going through a very difficult period, struggling under pressure but refusing to give up on his career. He is determined to succeed, even though he senses something is wrong with his superior. Jacob feels increasingly overwhelmed as the situation escalates, especially when she moves into the same neighborhood, making it impossible to escape her presence. On top of that, he is also dealing with the added strain of being called as a witness in an ongoing trial, which further increases the pressure on him. The stress becomes too much as the tension between Jacob and his boss continues to grow, both professionally and personally. Ross Barton notices Jacob's behavior and tries to encourage him to open up, but his advice to simply confront the situation proves unrealistic, given how serious things have become. Eventually, Jacob reaches breaking point and decides to file a formal complaint with the hospital, hoping to finally get support from HR. Unable to discuss the situation with his wife Sarah Sugden, he confides in a trusted colleague, who warns him that challenging someone like his boss could destroy his career. The actor adds that Jacob is trying to find his confidence while balancing ambition with fear, believing that the pressure he is under is simply part of the job. During the HR meeting, Jacob struggles with anxiety but manages to explain his experiences and how he has been treated. However, he is unaware that his boss is watching from nearby, silently monitoring everything. After the meeting, she attempts to confront him directly, but this time, Jacob finds the courage to stand up for himself. The question now is whether Jacob's decision will lead to real change, or whether his boss will continue to manipulate the situation and make his working life even more difficult. Emmerdale airs on weeknights at 8 p.m. on ITV1 and is also available to stream on ITVX.